Hey guys, what is going on? This is Travis P11. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel, and today we're going to do a little cleaning of this Palmetto State Armory GF3 AK pattern rifle. Before we do that, we're going to take you through all the different supplies and stuff we're going to use for the cleaning. Really, this is a lot more than what you need to do the cleaning, but makes my life a lot easier, so these are the things that I like to use. But before we do anything else, let's go ahead and verify that the rifle is in fact unloaded. You can see that we do have a chamber flag, which is in the barrel, but we're going to go ahead and pull back the charging handle. We will pull out the chamber flag and verify that the chamber is in fact empty. It is. No magazine in the gun. All right, go ahead and release the charging handle and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so first of all, what cleaner should you use? What supplies do you need and so on? Break-free CLP is going to be the cleaner, the primary cleaner that we're going to use on today's, on this rifle for today, especially in the internal components. It leaves a nice thick coat where you have a lot of metal on metal surfaces, and this will also prevent rust and corrosion and so on. I'm a huge fan of cleanse oil, but I won't be using cleanse oil for today's cleaning, but if you have cleanse oil, it does work really, really well. Leaves a thinner protective coat. This works great on pistols and other rifles and so on. Now for the outside of the gun, just a general wipe down of everything. We're going to be using these Otis 085 firearms wipes. These cover a lot of surface area really quickly, and you only need a couple wipes to basically wipe down an entire gun. These are great, especially post-range trip and so on. They're fairly inexpensive, and you get, I don't know, like 50 sheets or something like that in a can. Needle oiler is kind of nice for some of that, that fine oiling that you might want to do where you don't want to get a lot of lubricant all over the place. That's also something that you might want to have on standby. Now for the bolt and the bolt carrier, you know, the piston area and so on, I'm a huge fan of the SuperTech from Walmart. Multi-duty complex grease. This is the red stuff. It's kind of messy, but it does a great job protecting that bolt, and it really helps the bolt break in and wear properly, and also prevents excessive wear, and it doesn't dry out, and it's temperature resistant, especially where I live in Nebraska. We have massive temperature fluctuations over the course of the day and humidity fluctuations, and it just keeps everything protected, ready to run. You might want to get yourself an old toothbrush or just a soft nylon bristle brush to scrub stuff down if necessary. You know, scrub off the bolts and then the carrier and the piston and all that fun stuff. Cotton swabs, Q-tips, these are tipped in power swabs. I like to use these for some of the fine detail work. And let's see, cleaning rod is really nice to have, especially for getting in certain areas, like say your gas tube area, to scrub that out. I'm just gonna put an Otis wipe on there and just ram it through everything and wipe it out. Makes it super easy. Now you can use a traditional cleaning rod if you want to clean the barrel. We're actually gonna be using a bore snake, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It just kind of speeds things up a little bit, so that's what I like to use. But you can use the traditional 7.62 30 caliber barrel cleaning kit if you want to. If you want to pick one up, they're like 10 or 15 bucks at the store. Cleaning patches, you can use cut up cotton patches from say a t-shirt. I like to buy pre-cut patches that are ready to go. I get these at Shields, they're 10 bucks a pack. You can also get these at your local Walmart or your mom and pop sporting goods store, whatever works best for you. Maybe necessary to have a punch depending on my own grip strength and then how tight the lever is that we use to release the gas tube mechanism. So when we get there, that's something that this may be necessary, this and a hammer. Otherwise, we'll see how easily it moves. Just a couple taps will loosen it so we can get the lever out of the way. And we'll talk about that when we get there. So we'll do like a complete disassembly, then we'll clean off the components individually, and then when we're done, we'll do a full reassembly and take you through the whole process. Definitely should be a lot of fun. Let's see, I don't think we're forgetting anything. All right, let's go ahead and let's get started. Oh, and gloves. I like to wear gloves when I do cleaning just because these are all petroleum based. You can come in contact with a lot of lead, spent powder, gunpowder. It's good to keep your skin nice and clean, so I do recommend some nitrile gloves if you can, all right? All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have in fact verified that the firearm is in fact unloaded. Now you can grab yourself a patch, put a couple drops of oil on it. I'm just gonna go ahead and grab one of these Otis wipes, and we're gonna use that to wipe off the dust cover off the top of the rifle. So we'll keep that on standby. All right, so the first thing we wanna do is go ahead and press on the back. This is your recoil spring, I guess you could say catch or button. We're gonna push that in and pull up on the slide, or pull up on the cover, and the cover will come right off. There we go. Now if you need to, you can use a punch to push through a little bit further. All right, the cover's off. Let's just go ahead and wipe it off with one of those wipes or your patches with oil on it. And we will set that off to the side. Now you don't want an excess amount of oil on this thing. You don't want it dripping, you know, but do make sure that all of your surfaces are covered with some sort of lubricant, especially if you're gonna be storing it, say in a vehicle or in any kind of a humid area and so on. All right, we will go ahead and just set that off to the side. Okay, next step, let's go ahead and get this recoil spring out. So there's a little notch right here that it's gonna rest in. You just push it forward and pull back. It is gonna be under pressure, so be ready for it. This thing does come fairly well lubricated from the factory. Now this rifle has not been shot yet, so you know it isn't gonna be as dirty as yours may be, but you can repeat this process a couple times till the parts come clean on your wipes and so on. Okay, next step, we want to go ahead and pull out your bolt and also your piston. So there's a little bit of hammer pressure here. Your hammer's right here. If you push down, you can feel it. You're going to have to push down a little bit on this bolt as you pull back on it to get it out. And kind of make a note, when you pull it out, make a note of how it comes out of the gun, because that's how you're going to need to reset it when you put it back in the gun. Okay, so I can see that I've got my extractor up here. It's about the 11 o'clock position. So when I reassemble the gun, I want to make sure that it goes back in that exact same spot. So go ahead and pull out your bolts. Go ahead and just give this a complete wipe down. Again, if you've got your patch with oil on it, you can do that. Otis wipes make it a piece of cake. We are going to put a little bit of grease on this when we reassemble, and I'll show you where to apply that grease. It doesn't take a whole lot, but you do want to do a little bit. Now you can get your swabs out and really run them through with some oil and all these fine channels. You want to make sure that everything has some sort of lubricant on it. Go ahead and take your bolt and wipe that off. Also, it's also a good time to kind of take a look at the bolt and see where the wear marks are, because that's where you want to make sure that you are applying your grease. It's okay to have a general coat of oil on this bolt itself. Just wipe everything out. You can take a Q-tip to the front right here if you want to and wipe out that area where your extractor is. So go ahead and just take that, and you want to make sure that this area is dry. You don't want to leave oil in this area because it will attract a lot of grease and grime and so on. So go ahead and just scrub that out. And this is pretty dirty, so hit that with a couple Q-tips if you want to. Okay, that looks good. Pretty sure that these get test fired at the factory, so they are going to be a little bit dirty. Now we're not going to do further bolt disassembly. It's not really necessary, but I can already start to see some wear marks for where they test fired it. And those are the areas that we're going to want to make sure that we apply the grease. Also a little bit of grease on the rear of the bolt when we reassemble it. And you can take the Q-tips to this if you need to do more fine detail work. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now again, you can put your patch with a little bit of oil on it if you want to. I just like to use a giant Otis wipe. We're going to clean out an area behind the piston that a lot of people forget about. It can just, you can start to get a buildup and some corrosion in it. This area right here where your recoil spring is going to go, just go ahead and push your patch in there a couple times and just clean it out. You'll be surprised with what comes off on it. I mean, look at that. So it is dirty. A little bit of grease in there, okay? Piston's basically ready to go up until reassembly time, so go ahead and set that off to the side. Okay, so this area is a little dark, so I'm gonna do this with a headlamp on so you guys can see. Everything is nice and clean because, again, the gun has not been fired yet. But using one of your wipes or patch with some oil on it, we're just gonna go ahead and just do a general wipe down of everything that we can see. The rails, watch out for sharp edges, just wipe it all down. Again, if you got a lot of crud in there, you can take your brush shoot if you want to and scrub it all out. Inside the magazine well, go and wipe that out. Up here towards the front, your trunnion, there we go. Now also, if you want to, go ahead and push on the hammer on the top, pull the trigger and release it gently, and then you can also wipe out this area too and get this taken care of. Hopefully this is showing up on camera. If not, we're just scrubbing out the entire insides. You'll be able to see the dirt and sand and so on, okay? Go ahead and reset that so the hammer goes back down. So I got my headlamp on so you guys can see this. This lever is actually fairly loose, but if you need to, if necessary, you can go ahead and take your punch and just tap a couple times with your hammer, and that'll cause this lever to go up. But this is really loose, super easy to take off, but it depends on how tight yours is from the factory. And when you pull up on it, I can illuminate this for you here. This little bar right here, you're gonna wanna make sure that you can see through the rear so that you can actually see like a little physical space so that you'll be able to just pull this gas tube right out when you get there. So this part right here, you might have to finagle this, you might have to move this lever a little bit until you get the gas tube to come out. And again, it should just come right out if you have it aligned properly. Okay, we'll go ahead and just pull that off to the side. We will clean this up here in just a moment. To take off your lower handguard, there's a lever that's gonna be right here. And if you want, you can grab yourself a punch. Let's see, there we go. You just go ahead and flip this lever forward right here. There we go, that's gonna loosen, and you can just pull that little fastener or catch right there, and then you'll be able to just pull forward and your lower handguard will come right off. All right. Okay, now at this point, I'd like to just go ahead and wipe everything off. Your barrel, this area up here by your gas port. We don't need to take off the slant brake, it'll be fine. Just go ahead and wipe everything down. Okay. Now this area right here where the piston is going to run through, you definitely want to make sure that you get that cleaned out. So what I like to do is go and take a patch on a cleaning rod. Just go ahead and push that through a couple times there, and you'll definitely get some muck that'll come out on it. Wipe off the barrel, wipe off the underside where the handguard goes. There we go. Now with your gas tube, we can go ahead and use the same towel or patch that we just used to run through that block area up here where your side is. Go. This is also going to get really dirty. A lot of guys never clean this, but I like to, so just go ahead and run your patch through the rear of it and just pull it through a couple times and scrub it so it's nice and clean. You can look in it. If it's not shiny or if there's a buildup in there, then you know that you need to repeat this process several times. There we go. This will also ensure that it doesn't corrode, especially for running some old surplus ammo through it and so on. If you look through there, it should be nice and shiny. This looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and run another wipe through it. You guys don't have to watch that, but we'll do that real quick. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and wipe off the bottom of the gas tube so it's nice and clean. We'll just set that off to the side. Also the rear, make sure that's got a little bit of lubricant on it. You can remove the furniture, but it's not necessary for a basic cleaning like what we're doing today. All right, let's go ahead and move on to cleaning out the barrel. Now again, if you want to put a patch on here, a couple drops of oil, go from the back to the front, take off the patch, run a bristle brush through it, take that off, run another patch through it, you're welcome to do so. But for me, we're just going to go ahead and use a bore snake with a little bit of CLP on it to clean out the bore, to clean out the barrel today. It's very simple. Okay, the bore snake that I'm going to be using is made by a company called Real Avid. You can also get Hoppies if you want to. Okay, put a couple drops of oil, and then what you're going to do is just go ahead and weave this from the rear and just pull it through to the front. So what's nice about the Real Avid brand is that you can lock this into place and it makes a nice handle, and you can basically just pull right through. Hold on to the barrel and just pull. Just run this through maybe 2 or 3 times and you're going to be all set to go. There we go. Okay, so I got the headlamp on for this next part. With my needle oiler, I wanted to point this out to you. Go ahead and release that hammer again like I showed you earlier. This is something we should have done a little bit sooner. And just go ahead and put a little drop of oil on the sides where your trigger is. If you pull your trigger, these little pivot points that you have right down in here, again, just a drop of oil down in there will make it a lot easier. It's a little bit gritty, so I thought this needed just a little tiny bit of lubrication. So there's going to be a few points in here, which roll on a pin for the hammer. Just make sure that you have some oil down there and you'll be in good shape. Okay, so 2 drops of oil, good to go. All right, let's continue. Okay, so for this next part, you can just put some CLP if you want to on a Q-tip and just go ahead and wipe down these rails on both sides, the left and the right side. I'm actually going to put just a little dab of this high temperature grease that I mentioned earlier on the rails. Again, you don't need much. Just make sure that you have just a slight coating on the sides and the top. This will just ensure that your bolt carrier group has adequate lubrication, especially with all that metal on metal that's going to be taking place. Okay. There you go. So again, just a single little dab and you're all set to go. Go ahead and wipe that on the insides of the rail. Okay, for the next step, we're going to go ahead and put your lower handguard back on. So you've got kind of this little chuck right here, this little bit of plastic right here. So go ahead and just slide that back into place. It's going to go in about 1/4 of an inch, and then go ahead and take your little lever or your locking mechanism right here. So you've got this little cut right here on the top of the barrel. Hopefully you guys can see that. And what we do is just pull down on the little lever. I'm sorry, pull back on this little bracket, push down on the little lever. Everything is locked back into place and we are good to go. Okay, it should look like this once you've reassembled it. Okay. All right, now to get your gas tube back in, this is at an angle so you guys can see it. You're just gonna lock it back into place on the gas block, up on the gas port up here in the front. Make sure this little handle is flat so you can see all the way down. If you can see any part of the metal right here, you're not going to be able to lock that gas tube back into place, so go ahead and put it back on the front and squeeze it back down into place. Go ahead and pull your lever down. There we go. About a little over 90 degrees and it'll lock back into place. Okay, gas block is all set to go. Gas tube's ready to go. All right, let's go ahead and talk about lubricating that piston and bolt carrier group. Okay, so I do have a drop of oil on a Q-tip. We want to make sure in this channel right here that we have some lubrication on your bolt, so go ahead and just wipe that on there. You can see it. You can also use your needle oiler if you want to. Okay. All right, now, so we've got the piston, the carrier all set to go. I did make sure that we have oil in all these channels. Everything's ready to go there. Okay, make sure you have a little bit of oil in this area right here where your bolt is going to ride. I'm going to take a dab of the grease that I was talking about earlier. You can use white lithium grease if you want to. Any of these areas where we see some metal contact, we want just a very light dab of grease. Okay, you don't need a whole lot. I can see the worn metal from the test firing that they've done so far. So those are going to be areas that are going to come in contact with the carrier itself. And because of the loose tolerances, there's a lot of just kind of flinging of metal going on inside the bolt and the carrier group. Okay, now this whole stem back here, you can pretty much just give it one equal coat. In fact, we're just going to wipe this on. And then we're just going to go ahead and use our fingers and just go ahead and wipe that on. Again, if you got gloves on, that's probably the best way to do it. Go ahead and take your piston and your bolt and reassemble. It's only going to fit one way back together. This little notch right here is going to go back into this little channel. I hope you guys can see that. You're going to just basically pull it back into place, kind of pull it forward and such. And if you have it assembled correctly, you've got your extractor right here at the 11 o'clock position, all set to go. Okay, now for reassembly, your piston is going to go into this top part, and you want to make sure that you keep everything locked into place here. There we go, the way that it came out. And you're going to want to press down. You're going to see this little channel that's cut at the rear of the receiver, and that's where your piston and bolt carrier group are going to go. It's going to lock into place, and just go ahead and slide it forward. There you go. All right, now we'll go ahead and grab our recoil spring and put that back into place. Okay, recoil spring is going to go in the hole on the top of the piston and bolt carrier. And it's going to lock into place. There's a little notch here on the rear, and that's where your recoil spring is going to lock into place. It's just going to rest and lock into place. You should not be able to pull it up if it's properly installed. It's going to look kind of curvy and stuff, and that's normal. As long as you're locked in the rear and you're pushed into the front, you're all set to go. Okay, now we want to go ahead and just wipe off our dust cover one more time. It did absorb all that oil in that I put on there earlier. It was basically dry, so I can tell this finish is definitely lacking a little bit of lubrication. And if you get a little grease on and stuff, it's not the end of the world, especially if it's that high temperature stuff. It's just all lubrication in the end. Okay, now go ahead and push your cover on the front right here. It's going to lock into place. Snap down the rear while pushing forward. This part can be a little bit tricky depending on the gun itself. Okay, just push down and it will lock into place. Again, you want to make sure it does get locked back into that gas block on the top up here. I'm sorry, up into this block up here where your sight is. And we should be all set. Okay, verify again that the gun is unloaded. It is. Go ahead and cycle the bolt a couple times. That'll help work some of that lubrication onto the tracks. This one has not been fired yet, so it's still got some pretty tight tolerances going on. Go ahead and dry fire. Charge it again. Make sure your safety works. It does. Okay, dry fire again. And you are all set to go. Now, the last thing we're going to do is give it one more general wipe off with a patch with some oil on it, and it's all ready for the range. Okay guys, so if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Go back and watch this video if you need to, especially if you're cleaning this for the first time. If you guys have anything special you like to do when you clean your AK, make sure you let me know. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for watching today. And again, please check out our podcast. It's called Caliber Corner. We do that Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. It's a great little podcast. We've been doing it for 5 years, 250 episodes, and it is a great show. Good cast that's on there too with me, a great panel every week. All right, guys, this is Travis P11. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I want you guys to have fun. I want you to be safe, and as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.